Welcome everyone to this demo. Here we are going to talk about how we can leverage Microsoft Viva Connections adaptive card extensions to create end-to-end solutions integrated with Microsoft Teams. So just a few words about myself. I'm Paolo and I'm a solution architect working in the area of Microsoft 365. As you can imagine, you can read everything else on this slide and I don't want to stay here too long. So I will just move to the real content. And first of all, let me try to briefly set the context. This is a demo which is part of a big demo that you can find also on the samples gallery that Fabian was talking about. And the demo covers how you can use and how you can create, first of all, with SharePoint Framework, a solution to extend Microsoft Teams as well as Viva Connections and with a backend ecosystem based on the main workloads of Microsoft 365. We have been playing with this demo solution already in some of the previous community calls, and we will do again in the future. Today, I want to focus on the Viva Connection dashboard experience. Here you can see a short video that I recorded from my mobile phone just to easily being able to share with you the UI of Viva Connection dashboard on a mobile device. Here you can see I'm scrolling a list of adaptive cards in my dashboard, and I can access any of them with advanced functionalities, like, for example, clicking on the All Products button and having access to the list, detailed list of the products. And as you can see, beside every single product, there is a little arrow that you can press to dig into the product and so on and so forth. Whenever you do that, you use SharePoint Framework because SharePoint Framework is nowadays the framework for extending Viva Connection dashboard, and you create ACEs, so the adaptive card extensions. Actually, whenever you want to extend the Viva Connection dashboard, you can do that either using a fully customized approach, so the so-called pro-code approach, but you can also use the no-code one, which relies on just configuring on the dashboard a set of cards provided by Microsoft, so the so-called first-party cards. But you can also use a card designer ACE provided still by Microsoft, which allows you to use a low-code approach. So just by configuring some settings and eventually providing a bunch of JSON, you can design your own custom card without the need to dig into developing a real solution with SharePoint Framework. It is up to you and up to what you want to do with your solution. No matter what, when you create and when you configure the Viva Connection dashboard, you put on the dashboard a set of cards which can be targeted using the target audiences, and eventually you can use custom logic if those are pro-code developed solutions. And whenever you do that, you have the card views and the quick views. What you see right now on the screen, right now in this moment, the retail inventory is called quick view because it is a popping up screen which allows you to provide an advanced UI in your cards, while all of these rectangles or squares that you see are called card views and are the main entry point of every single adaptive card extension. So from a technological scenario, this demo, the one that I'm going to show you, relies on a SharePoint Framework adaptive card extension, which does use a card view to show the carousel of products that we have in an hypothetical retail company, fashion retail company, and a quick view to render a detailed list of products in the fashion retail company, and with the capability to click on one of those items to dig into the item through a Teams-based application still based on SharePoint Framework. And we have a backend built with an Azure function that you can find in the repository where also this solution is available. So just to give an idea and move into the actual demo, this is the solution on the samples gallery, and later at the end of this demo, I will share with you a direct link and a QR code to download it. So you don't need to write down the URL right now. And here in the GitHub repository, you will find both the source code of the front end with SharePoint Framework as well as of the back end with .NET Azure Functions. Then when you use it from an end user point of view, now I'm in the desktop version of the Viva Connection dashboard, you can click on the All Products button and you get access to this item, which is called Quick View, while the other one, this rectangle here, is called CardView, as I told you. When you click on the Quick View button right here, you are brought to the Teams app that we have in this solution. That's why I told you that's an end-to-end solution, because we have components inside Teams, we have components inside Viva, we have a backend on Azure, and many more items will come and will be shared in the future about this demo. Here, as you can see, I simply clicked on a product, and let's say I want to get this pink cotton t-shirt. If I click on it, I will be brought to a Teams app directly with a deep link, which will bring me to the detailed information about the selected product. So now let me explain you how we created this solution and how you can easily do the same in your own custom developed solutions. First of all, I created an adaptive card extension. In order to do that, we need to run the yeoman generator for SharePoint framework, so yo@microsoft/SharePoint. You provide whatever name you like for your solution, and you choose to create an adaptive card extension. When you do that, you then need to choose what kind of first UI you want to have for the card view, for the first card view that will be rendering the UI of your adaptive card. In fact, whenever you create an ACE or an adaptive card extension, you can have as many card views and as many quick views as you like, but for sure you will have at least one card view, which will be the one you will be able to see in the dashboard the very first time you will add your adaptive card extensions to the dashboard. So this question right here is to let you choose how the first card view will look like. And it can be a basic card just with the basic text, can be a card with an image like the one we see right here. This one is a card with an image. In fact, we have an image which is changing and we have some text on the left side, plus additional custom buttons. You can have up to 2 buttons in the card rendering, or you can choose to have a primary text template, which will simply allow you to have a primary text and a descriptive text inside a text-based rendered adaptive card extension. Doesn't really matter what I'm going to choose right now, because this is just to explain you where you start from. But now, once you have done that and you choose one option, like for example, the image card, you provide a name. Hello World is definitely fine because I'm not going to use it. The scaffolding tool will generate for you a bunch of code, and then you will find something like the following solution that is the real one I'm going to share with you. I hope the font size is good enough. So here we have the automatically scaffolded code for my inventory adaptive card extension that I created in this solution. And whenever you create an ACE, you get a class which extends the base adaptive card extensions provided by the basic infrastructure of SharePoint framework. And by inheriting from this one in the onInit method of this extension, you can configure all the card views and quick views that you want to have in the UI of your solution. As I told you, you can have as many cards as you like and as many quick views as you like. For all of them, you need to register them in the onInit method. In this sample, I just have one card view and one quick view, so I register those 2 objects. And I simply then need to do proper setting up of my solution. Here, for example, we work using a service, actually a couple of service classes, one to manage the settings of the ACE and one to manage the access to the actual data, which is exposed through a REST API in the backend. So the service that I'm going to use to access data is nothing more than a support service class, which will make all of the REST requests targeting the backend REST API. I'm using right here to give you a proper example of how you should do things the right way. I'm using the service scope pattern provided by SharePoint framework. So through the context of SharePoint framework, rather than creating an instance of a class, I use the service scope to get a new instance of my service so that I will be able inside the service to get access to all of the context information that I have also in the SharePoint framework custom solutions. And once I've done that, I simply trigger an asynchronous reload of my data through the service so that I can initially do a first rendering of my card, and then in background, I can do the actual download of data and render my data in the UI of the card view. The CardView itself is really simple. Any CardView is a class which extends one of the 3 templates that we have out of the box in SharePoint Framework. Can be the base image card, can be the one based on text, or the basic one. So the 3 that we saw previously. Now, this one is based on the base image card view. So whenever we want to implement this kind of card, we simply need to provide 3 information: the primary text, the URL of the image we want to render, and a title for our card. These 3 information will be used by the infrastructure of SharePoint Framework and of the ACES to render the actual UI of the card. Plus, in my card, sorry, not here, but here, we have the buttons. So how do we render the buttons? We have a card buttons method that we can expose, which can return just 1 button or 2 buttons or no buttons, up to you. So you can return 1, 2, or 0 buttons. And inside the logic of this method, you can return an array of 0, 1, or 2 items, which will simply say what every single button will do. In my scenario, my button will simply be of type QuickView, meaning that it will activate a QuickView and will render a QuickView which will be identified by ID. This ID is precisely the ID that we registered in the onInit method of my card, and which is defined as a static content here in my, as a constant here in my card definition. So let's have a look at the QuickView. The QuickView is a little bit more complex, despite the name QuickView, because it is quick when rendering, but not necessarily when you develop it. But you need to know the adaptive card JSON syntax in order to do that. In fact, we still have a class which implements the actual base logic of the QuickView, but then we inherit from a type which will rely on property and state of our adaptive card extension. So notice that here in the definition of the adaptive card extension, we have an interface for the properties and an interface for the state, almost like what happens with React, even if it is not exactly the same story. And then the same properties and states are available in the card view, as well as in the QuickView. But in the QuickView, we also have the definition of an additional interface, which will be the data description interface. Through this interface, we declare what kind of data we want to provide for data binding inside our QuickView. We then have a getData method, which we can use to provide actual content for the object, which will implement the data interface. And in the template folder, we have a JSON file, which will define the actual rendering of our QuickView. In this file, we use the syntax of the adaptive cards, which you should learn about if you want to develop this kind of solutions. And here, for example, I define a body with an initial text, which will be the title property of my data source object, and then with a table, which has been released in version 1.5 of this schema. And we defined a table which is made of columns and rows. And all of the rows will be data bounded to the products array property that we have in the data source object, where we have a products array of retail product. Every retail product is made of code, description, and so on and so forth. And as such, in the JSON, we simply rely on the picture, on the product code, using this syntax. So $ curly bracket and the name of the property that we want to bind to our interface. So basically, we use this approach. One interesting thing is the deep link, which is the last thing I want to cover. In the data source object that I'm providing to the JSON, I also provide a deep link ID and the app URL. These two properties simply rely on the URL of my Teams app inside Microsoft Teams. The app ID is a unique ID which identifies my application, the one in which I am. And then I simply provide inside the JSON the following behavior. So when you are in the column where, sorry, right here, when you are in the column in the cell where you have the rendering of the little arrow to bring the user to the detail panel, we say that by clicking on that image, we want to have a select action, which will open a URL with a specific tooltip and title. And the URL will be the URL of the app in Microsoft Teams, so the input argument that we provide, followed by a set of context information, which will include the product code that we want to render and the unique ID of the deep link that we are rendering right now in the UI. So at the very end, when I click on this little arrow, I'm targeting the user to the app, and I'm providing in the query string the ID of the product that I want to render. So quite simple, okay? And now hopefully it will load the data. Hopefully yes, or hopefully not, we'll see, but not fundamental right now. So that's the story. You can get data from an external data source. You can do data binding inside the QuickViews simply by defining a custom data source object and providing, for example, an array of items that you can use in the JSON. And you can eventually also use the open URL action to bring the user from the Viva Connection dashboard to a Teams application or to whatever else you want to bring the user to. That said, let me switch briefly back to the presentation. Here you can find a QR code to access the source code of the demo solution that I showed you. And just below, you can find the initial entry point if you want to learn more about how to create adaptive card extensions with the SharePoint framework. And that said, I think that's all for me. Thank you, and back to you, Fabian.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I'm just looking through the comments, a lot of more raves and reviews and positive feedback on the range of the demo and the things that you're doing. I think I saw one question with regards to scale from David, but we can probably handle that in chat.
Well, I will manage the chat, so no worries. I will give an eye to all of the questions in the chat and try to give an answer. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great demo as usual. Lots of range. I'm always fascinated when I see this stuff.